Oh my God, y'all saw that, right? Wah, 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 wah. Oh, I'm dead.
Good evening, everyone. We're just getting. Beard is going to be jumping on here shortly. Green is out this evening, and Justin is still away on business, so it's just going to be Beard and I. Just giving you a heads up there. So just give Beard a few more minutes, and then also just a heads up. I'm actually on minion monitoring duty at the moment, so we might be starting off a little bit later than usual this evening. And then also we're going to be skipping top 3 since Green is not with us, so we'll talk about that a little bit here as well.
Peekaboo.
Hey, how's it going?
It's going.
I think it's just gonna be you and I tonight. Green is at a party, I think she said.
Okay.
And then Justin's still out on business.
Business. Who needs business?
Yeah, who needs to pay the bills? That's crazy talk.
Really. I just went to see the Queen.
Oh, for Shattered Throne?
Yep. That's some shit, let me tell you.
Mm-hmm.
Her throne world is inside the globulus. I also didn't realize how bad I sound without the pop filter on, so I'm going to continue to use the pop filter when I'm on podcast. Ow. Because I used it in I didn't use it one time in a video, and then all of a sudden I listened, and I was like, ooh, that was bad. What did I... Oh, I never put the pop filter down.
Oh, yeah. Give me a few minutes, I think. I'm
Sure.
on minion monitoring duty at the moment.
Mm. I should probably switch to controller.
Oh, on the
Otherwise it's...
PC.
Yeah. Otherwise it's going to be click, 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 click. Listen to my space bar. It is mad.
Tappity, 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 tap.
Yeah, so I don't really have a lot of info on what's going on with the game, but I will try to keep up best I can.
No worries. Yeah, I figured tonight we're gonna probably be mostly doing like, oh god, that did not paste in as the regular text.
my controller go? Eh? That was weird.
What's up?
I plugged my controller in and it started up Chrome.
Hmm. Yeah,
Those
that
two
makes
things
sense.
don't seem to really go together very well. In the words of JonTron, I have several questions.
But why?
Yeah. No, don't shoot me, Scorn. I'm trying to do something. Where am I going? Race Sylvia. Oh, so it is Drifter this week? I thought it was Cyberpunk. Never mind.
Yeah, no, next week Cyberpunk.
Okay. Yeah, that is the first Friday of the month. Derp. This week is not the first Friday of the month.
Yeah, thank God.
But there. Then never mind. I have some information I can add in on this.
I can talk about this.
I do have stuff I can say. Also, hi, chat. Oh, that would explain why. I hit a brick wall. Actually, technically, I hit a stealth brick wall. Oh, come on. Jesus Christ, what is going on?
Magic.
Rocking my damn world.
Oh.
That explains a few things.
Did you find the edge of the map?
No, this Taken is a huge yellow bar.
He really wants your attention.
Apparently. You did, you son of a bitch. Ugh, okay. I think I can actually get through now. Oh yeah, it was like threefold because I had the Taken ogre that's outside the place and he kept pushing me back. And then I had that was going on. Plus this guy just all right, all right, all right.
All I can think of is McConaughey the entire time.
Oh, I know. You're not wrong.
I know.
Oh, you're not wrong.
Like, I'm pretty sure that was a deliberate thing, but
Yeah, I don't know. But no, stop. Too many things push you around in this game now. Hive! Grab a sword. Uh, yeah. So we came up with a pretty good one. Actually, I won't even like try to claim any part of this, but we were talking about the Drifter, and we started thinking up some. There were some puns because, of course, puns happen in my
Mm-hmm.
chats. And somebody said, "Honey, I banked the kids." Yeah, it was a good one. Whee!
That's acceptable. That's
It's
acceptable.
I already warned them. I was like, I hope you realize I wrote this one down. It will be used as the thumbnail, and I will give no credit because that is how I am.
That's how I am. It's mine now.
Joking aside, joking aside, because I will obviously give credit if need be. But I was just like, oh my god, wait, do I have to like seriously go from here all the way over there? All right, fine, let's try. Oh no, no, no! There's a platform. Okay, cool. I made it. Okay. Where is there lore in here? Because I bet there's lore in here.
In what?
Ascendant challenge this week.
Oh, probably.
Seems like there's lore in like all of them. Oh, of course. Why wouldn't I be recording? Oh, I found Toland.
There you go.
That's all that matters. Oh, hi Toland. Oh, that's why Ice died. How the frick hell? Nope. Goodbye, cruel world. Oh, that's not cool. I want to go back in there. I feel like that was also a giggity. Have you been able to play too much more?
Hmm. I got distracted. Halo 5 had rock and rails.
Hmm.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm like, I jumped on Halo 5 the other night to just play like the daily, get the daily win or whatever for the rec pack. And I
Right.
turned on the social playlist and I was like, wait, what? I'm like, well, this there goes tonight's plans. That's not gonna happen. Like, so long plans for this evening.
Decor spurned by Yule. Maroc spurned by Ear. Garak spurned by Zol. Interesting.
Yeah, so they're not the swarm princes, but they're interesting.
Yeah.
Wait, they are the same names as the ones from D1? Malak is in there too? Or not Malak,
Maroc, Decor, and Garak, which I don't remember those names in
I don't either.
Swarm Princes. Doesn't sound right. They are immune to me. This is not good.
That's not fun.
No. Kind of like this though, because they're fighting us one by one here. Okay, yeah, they're 110%. That's not good. Oh, I got pushed out.
Maroc. You said, what were their names again, sir?
Maroc, to core. I gotta get back in there. Oh, shit.
Was it? So I have Maroc, Decor, and Garak.
Garak, I think it was. Yeah.
Okay, so those are the Swarm Princes.
Huh. Okay then.
What about Banuk? Is Banuk in there, or is there only 3 of them?
No, it looks like it's only the 3 of them.
All right, so of the Swarm Princes, Banuk is the one that's not there. Because Garak is the Zol Prince, Decor is Yule Prince, and Maroc is Ear Prince.
Mm-hmm. You know, the Ascendant challenges are kind of shisty with kicking you out like that.
Okay, yeah.
Hmm?
Sorry, talking with chat. They're talking about the princes.
Gotcha.
Because they're now spurned.
I'm working on it here to get back in there.
No worries. Banuk is your... Going back here. Nope. That one. That's what I want. Garak is Zol.
Oh my god, this controller is failing me so hard right now. I really need to probably go get 2 new ones because I have worn these things to hell. I love the PlayStation controllers, but they seriously do not last long.
Oh, really? Like the general ones?
They die so fast, unfortunately. I beat them up in a year's time, and I rarely get to play.
Yeah, that's pretty slow. Or sorry, that's pretty fast.
Yeah. I'm not exactly the easiest on my controllers, but it's not like I'm throwing them against the wall or anything. I just... God.
Beard is very violent.
Fucking shit. I didn't know that one was spinning. Screw these things. Alright.
Alright. Alright. Got that. Well, and to be fair though, with the Swarm Princes, we didn't kill them in the Ascendant Realm.
Right.
We just
I
killed
gotta
them
say,
on
we
the
really,
moon.
we really don't know how powerful, strong, or otherwise they are, to be frank.
I could see them being minor Ascendant Hive.
Yep. Yeah, it may have taken them a little time to, like, really come back out of their throne worlds.
Right.
I mean, for God's sake, a Dreg was able to have his own throne worlds. Like, all bets are off at this point.
Yeah, at this
when it
point,
comes
yeah.
down to
Well,
Ascendants.
I mean, speaking about tonight's topic.
Yeah, really. Granted, I haven't done every bit of reading I would have liked to yet, but soon, TM.
Soon. Okay. Let's see. You good to start up? Need to go grab a drink.
Yeah, I'm gonna say go
Okay.
ahead here for a little bit. I'll see how fast I can get this done.
So you want me to start or you want me to wait?
We can wait here real quick.
Yeah, okay.
Oh boy.
You can do it.
mean, I'm kind of cheating. I've got Karnstein's armlets on again. These things are busted as shit again. It's wonderful.
Are they really?
Yep. Especially when linked with the new fission subclass. Just wonderful. Oh my god! Recommended power 550. I'm at 530 and I'm getting my ass handed to me.
Power
It shouldn't be the case. That is crazy. 20 points and I'm like getting one shot by stuff. Didn't have that problems in frickin' Blindwell, for God's sake. That was 560 that I needed for the top one on that. At least I got that jump pattern down now. Jesus. Hang in there, boys. I'm almost back. Oh, that ain't good. Go for it. Go for it. I'm fine. Ooh. It's still immune.
You're going to serve as a distraction for everything.
Pretty much. I'm just going to be clearing out ads, basically. What you got, Toland? Oh. Oh. Oh, that's just not cool. You go first, I go first. You go first. Okay. It was right over my head. Alright, boys. Am I shooting the eggs?
But are you? Are you really?
Oh, portal up there. There's also... Was there a thing over here? No? I was gonna say I see the portal up top, but... Oh, we need the sword. Okay, you should be clear ice. Yeah, not by a ton. I think I'm at 5:30. Yeah, 5:30. I said that already, didn't I?
Yeah, that's what they're like. You're only at 5:30. I'm like, oh man, Beard has me beat. Like I'm, nope.
Everybody's like, "Oh my God, you're a Destiny content creator. Why aren't you at a higher level?" And I'm just like,
Because
"Work.
I'm a Destiny
How about
content
life?"
creator.
Yeah, I gotta say, let me tell you what. How about this? The whole making lore content thing means I'm reading more times than I am anything.
Mhm.
You know how Assassin's Creed works? 2 missions with the mind, 1 with the body. That is basically what my entirety is about. Yeah, buddy, we got the loot. Gentlemen, thank you. I'm actually curious how the Reverie Dawn looks in here a little bit. Let me throw that stuff on. Oh, I don't have the taken effects. Oh, now I do. Oh. Oh, my.
I don't have these. Oh. Oh, there they
Never
are.
mind. I was just curious how the taken effects look, because I heard so much about that. We did it. All right. I will stop holding this up, then we can get going.
Okay, cool. All right. Let's go. Today's chat is brought to you by, well, all of your support. Through the patronage you provide the Focus Fire chat team through Podbean's crowdfunding, we are able to provide you with the weekly podcast as well as the website and other aspects of Focus Fire chat. If you have any interest in becoming a patron of the FFC, please be sure to visit our website and click on the support link. Even a single dollar helps, and for those of you who are already patrons, thank you again for your generosity. You may have heard the whispers of guardians gathering in the shadows, exploring the mysteries of this world and the worlds which surround us. We are all in search of truth. Sometimes we need to focus that search, focus that fire. And so we come together. Join us. Join the discussion. Welcome to Focused Fire Chat. Welcome back to episode 145 of Focus Fire Chat, recorded live on September 28th over on twitch.tv/FocusFireChat. As always, want to give a big shout out to our live chat here with us tonight. Thank you so much for joining us once again. Our topic for tonight's episode is going to be a look at a Drifter's Gambit lore booklet. But first, let's run through a quick introduction for those of you, or for those who are on the show with us tonight. As always, this is your host, Blue Crew 86. And then next up and only, we have the man who is known far and wide as the Destiny lore content cop, the one and only Beard Grizzly. Beard, how are you doing tonight?
Oh, I'm doing well. How about yourself?
Pretty good. I'm thrown off because I'm used to having more intros. I'm like, oh, yeah. I don't have any super names to throw out.
You're just like, wait a minute. How many people are here? This is a problem. I'm confused.
Why do we have so little people?
Yeah, really.
Well, real quick, I guess really just jumping right in. We had asked the community this last week, should we be worried about the Drifter? And, I think the actual terminology was, should be worried that the Drifter is up to no good and that by playing Gambit, we are aiding him. And pretty overwhelmingly, the community over there responded with yes. The yes was 75%. No was 25%, and I think the total number of votes was about 140. 136 total. And I wanted to read a couple of them because for a large percentage of them, most of the responses are basically, he might be bait for larger prey, but he in and of itself is pretty dangerous as well, that we need to be worried. The best response, however, comes from One Fox Two Fox, where he says he is a bad man. Bungie is brilliant, putting one of the most successful modes of Destiny behind a sinister ploy. Quote, every moat you bank, every invasion you take, Drifter is watching you. Baby, can't you see? Darkness grows from thee. In Shin I trust, hunters lead the way. End quote. Which I love.
Oh,
I love it.
I see what he did there by the end of that. I get it now.
So yeah, that made it all worth it. But yeah, so in the next week we are going to actually be doing our extra lore content. So we will probably try to either get a question about that up over on the poll or on Twitter for everyone, which of course will get posted over in our Discord server as well for you guys to weigh in. Or we will try to do something. I'm assuming Green might have something in store for it. She usually does. But with that being said, let's go ahead and jump in to the actual topic.
Okay.
In our last episode of Focus Fire Chat, we discussed a broken Vanguard. If you ever miss an episode and would like to catch up, please be sure to check out FocusFireChat.com for archives, articles, and links to the other aspects of Focus Fire Chat. If you don't mind, please rate and, if you can, review the show on iTunes, Podbean, or whichever podcasting app you use to enjoy podcasts. Reviews are extremely helpful as they not only let us know what we can do better, but help us stay up on the charts, which help others find our amazing community. To those of you who have already taken the time to leave us a review, thank you once again. As many of you already know, Focus Fire Chat is a cross-community gathering where the intent is to offer a week-long, in-depth view of a particular subject from within the lore of Destiny and other games. This chat begins every Tuesday morning and runs until the following Tuesday, with topics decided by the group via a poll that begins every Friday and ends on the Tuesday morning of the new chat. Every Friday at around 10 p.m. Central, we get together to stream a high-level summary of the previous week's chat for those who were unable to participate. Please be sure to also give some support to the other podcasts in the Guardian Radio Network, links of which can be found on our website. If you're a fan of lore in all its various forms, be sure to also check out thelorenetwork.com, where you can find a wide variety of some amazing content that covers a number of different titles and mediums. Our next chat is going to be a discussion on the extra lore topic for September, Cyberpunk 2077. However, as always, please be sure to weigh in on the poll this weekend to let us know which topic you want us to discuss after that. Links to that poll can be found on either Twitter @FocusFireChat or within our Discord server. With all this being said, here's Green with a high-level summary of tonight's topic.
The Drifter is a man with a past littered with encounters that draw the question of, is there a side that he is on? Which also begs the question, is Drifter the only character in-game that we have personally encountered that appears to toe the line between light and dark, and remains a guardian in only the loosest of terms, rather considered a rogue lightbearer? We enjoy, well, most of us enjoy his Gambit, yet do not question why or how he does what he is able. The man has collected taken primevals and enemies from every race. His ship and pocket ascendant plane now lie near the last city, and his own Gambit has yet to be revealed. The ties to Dredgen Yor and the Shadows is littered throughout the new grimoire. Let us hope we can discover what his endgame is before his long con is complete. Let us dive into the mysterious Drifter and his Gambit.
Before we jump into the information and thoughts the community had about the Drifter, however, let's have a quick chat about this week's Lost Lore.
All right, Mavericks. Let's see what you're fighting today. Hive on the field. Grab a sword.
Oh man. Well, this week actually for the Lost Lore, what I was thinking, I had shared this over with a couple or with our podcast team, but I stumbled across a post by a user on Reddit who goes by Breath. Excuse me, man. Breath of Ahamkara, and they had posted a idea on, I believe this was the Destiny Lore subreddit, about Callum, who we'll definitely mention here in this episode because we're going to be talking about the lore booklet, Drifter's Gambit, where we kind of hear about Callum a bit. But he or they, sorry, had posted the idea that Callum, and kind of a connection here to some real life history, the origin of Callum's name. And so, like, where does this name come from, basically, is what the post is all about. And they go on to discuss that, it's derived from Saint Columba, who is an Irish saint, and is an Irish saint that is really up on the same level as St. Patrick. This is a very, very, very big name in the story of Ireland. And, it's an interesting connection, too, because there's a book known as the Vitae Columbae, or Column Seal, and there are actually three, I think they're basically minor books. I want to call them chapters, but they're really three separate aspects of this book. And in book 2, the interesting thing is that we see some of Callum's, the Columba, we see Columba present almost, well, he is able to perform miracles. And the interesting thing, or the curious aspect of these miracles, is that among them is the ability to bring the dead back to life. And in book 3, he actually he also is able to prophesy. And in book 3, we actually see him predicting his own death. But this is an interesting comment, and the reason why Breath of Ahamkara brings this up, and I really like this connection, is the instance that we interact with, or we see Callum in the Drifter's Gambit book. He is actually seeming to sacrifice his ghost. And it is, he kills his own ghost with a thorn from Thorn. So one of the barbed rounds from Thorn. It's basically, he's made it into a dagger, and he stabs his own ghost through the optics with it and kills it before the narrator kills him. And the question is really, what is Callum doing? What is exactly going on here? It's and then I think the other thing is, we in game encounter Callum with the, is it Maleficence quest, is we have to actually we go to the site of his tomb, I believe, which is on Io. And
I think it was a graveyard.
Or graveyard.
Like
okay, the grave would be,
and everything, but not having played it, I don't know. But
and apparently he has an Irish. I haven't actually played this, but apparently he also has an Irish accent, which is another kind of interesting little connection here. But I guess
say that quest actually allows you to hear a couple different voices, from what I heard as well, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, nice. So, and I guess the reason that this is really kind of prominent in Breath of Ahamkara's point of view is that when you go to that grave, you have to take part of Callum's ash, and it's explained in game it's called depleted. So it's like, why is it depleted? Like, what is going on here? And so Breath here presents this theory, basically, that he's powered the Dagger of Thorn and basically used that to drain his ghost of its light, and then connecting that back to Columba, who is Callum's kind of namesake. One of the abilities of Columba was the resurrection of the dead. Well, what would a shadow of Yore really, who would that want to be? And so this post is actually called Callum, Saint of the Dredgen. And I really like that idea. And so it's like the entire theory here is that this character is trying to actually figure out a way to resurrect Dresden Yor. And it ends with a quote of, like you said, "You can't kill us all." So it's just a great little kind of theory there. Huge shout out to the user Breath Ahamkar. I'm going to be linking to that thread in Reddit in the show notes, so please be sure to jump in there and give them a big shout out on the Reddit there. And if you aren't already on Destiny Lore subreddit, definitely go check that out. There's a lot of excellent posts being put up there now that we have the breadth and depth of new lore within the Forsaken DLC. But that being said, let's get into the whole thing of really kind of what it is tonight that we're going to be talking about, which is everyone's favorite, well, some of your guys' favorite new PvP, I can't stand it, PvP mode, Gambit. So, what is the Drifter's Gambit? To be honest, we don't know what the Drifter's Gambit is. We know that he is, like Cade, making a bet about something. There is a number of different entries, both within the actual Drifter's Gambit book, and then also, if you have the Ancient Apocalypse armor set, you have one of three, depending on which class you have. The Titan has the story of the Drifter stealing some gear for Gambit, which is really funny. And then the Hunter has the Drifter really kind of preparing an arena for a game on the Emerald Coast. And then the Warlock set, which is actually the set that we will probably be focusing on tonight, I have a feeling.
Gee, I wonder why.
Because the Warlock set introduces a whole host of little things that are very, 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 very interesting. And this is this again is off the Ancient Apocalypse armor set. So I will be, of course, linking these in the show notes as well. But the Warlock set is talking about a part of the Drifter's past in which he encounters possibly the source of the giant thing that his ship is dragging along with him. Okay, so that all being said, yes, chat is bringing up the great point. The order of reading these is interesting. There is an order, and I have them all printed out, so of course I forgot to write it down for everyone. But let me grab it real quick, because Trigger brings up an excellent point. And in the Warlock, to be fair, in the Warlock set, it is actually numbered. So that one is pretty easy. But the Hunter and the Titan armor is not. And
the way I read them and interpreted them, though, it does seem like it goes from bond to or from helmet to
helmet
bond.
Yeah, I wanted to say that. I think that was the case. Did I put those?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Sorry, I did have forethought and put those in here. Titan armor is, hey, you know what? I said past me surprises current me all the time. The Titan armor, the order that I read them in was helm, plate, gauntlets, greaves, mark. Which again, yeah, like Beard's saying, is that's kind of the top to bottom there. Hunter is mask, vest, grips, strides, and then cloak. So again, top to bottom. And then Warlock follows. Let me just make sure. Warlock follows the exact same thing, but again, Warlock actually is helpful because each one of the Warlocks is quoted as part blank of 5.
See, I don't know. To me, I read it as mask, grips, vest, strides, cloak. And that seemed to make sense with the way that it was written.
For the Hunter? Yeah. That's what I
And
have.
for Titans as well, actually.
Yeah, helmet, chest, arms, legs, class.
No, I did helmet, gauntlets, plate, greaves.
Oh, really?
mark.
Okay.
So
Let me
I
see.
flip-flopped the two between the plate and the gauntlets. So at least there, because that's usually how I've been reading them, because in the armor selection screen, that's how it pops up. That's how
Well,
it
and I
shows
would. So for the Titan, though, like the argument that I have here is for the Titan. If you read, let me make sure I'm reading this. Let me make sure that I am reading this correctly on my printout.
Sure.
Yes. So the plate, for instance, on Ancient Apocalypse, the helm is him jumping onto the train. The plate is him on top of the train. The gauntlets are right after he takes out the two red jacks. And then the greaves are, or the gauntlets are also when he runs into Joxer and Redix. And then the greaves are, him getting the Tex Mechanica. And then the mark is him coming back and being like, kind of hanging around Joxer and Redix while they try to put the red jacks back together. So for that one,
Yeah, no,
the hunter one
I can see.
the hunter one is much more fluid. I will give everyone that. Like I continuously am still kind of arguing with myself on the reading order for this one.
I'm gonna say the hunter one is definitely a weird one.
But it's
Just
also
checking
because it's
out
like in the
the-
middle of a battle. Like it's a fight
Right.
that he has where you kind of, this is also where we see his perspective of summoning a primeval, which is very interesting actually.
Yeah.
Like how the whole primeval things get summoned is a very interesting thing for him, and they are completely controlled by him as well, which is very, because he doesn't just summon one primeval, he summons quite a few.
Yeah, he summons several of them.
Let me just, sorry, I'm going through my notes real quick, and
Yeah, I'm gonna say I'm kind of poking
because
through it here a
because
little
one of
bit,
the
too.
this is the one where he flips off the Cabal. I forgot
Yeah.
about that one.
Yeah, I'm gonna say it's the T for teen way of giving
Yeah.
the bird,
Oh my
basically.
gosh. Oh my gosh, I
Love
forgot.
that.
9. He summons 9 primevals, and they just like
Mhm.
completely destroy the Cabal. So Hunter,
Oh, yeah.
Hunter, I'll revisit and try to make sure that I have that in a logical way. Because like I said, that one I keep going back and forth on. And then Warlock is thankfully very straightforward, which is,
Yeah,
nice.
I'm gonna say
They have it nicely documented which one is the first and which one's the second. And that one's important again because that one is an explanation of possibly one of the things that the Drifter was doing outside of the system, or supposedly outside the system. So,
right.
but to kind of circle back real quick, when we talk about a Drifter's Gambit is actually a collection of entries within the game. We've been really happy with this idea of lore books or booklets, whatever you want to call it, because of, for better or worse, whether you agree with the collection or you don't, what it does do is it allows us to have these types of conversations more easily and more structured. And so this particular booklet, I don't really want to call it a book because it's kind of a booklet, has about, let's see, we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 entries. And the order that I have it in, again, this is there's not a specified order really. So that we kind of take it based off the order of kind of the hints that we have in the entries themselves, and then also based off the order that it is shown on screen in game. So we actually, again, big shout out to Bungie here. They are in game, which is a huge thing. So the order that I have it written down, and Beard, weigh in on this one if you disagree with a couple of these. I have Uneasy Feeling the first. Justified Means is the second. Next is Step into the Shade, then Artifacts and Old Friends, Shadow on a Wall, Bright Side of a Bad Idea, The Price of a Double-Sided Coin, Checking the Chamber, A Matter of Trust, and The Long Con. It's kind of the order that I have them listed. Again, kind of going off of some of the few hints in the actual entries, and then also based off kind of the display pattern in game.
I'm gonna say I didn't quite get that far to begin with, but I'm going by the order that Ishtar has it up on underneath their book section.
Yeah, and I think Ishtar has it very similar.
Yeah, I think that's the same setup that they have. I could be wrong.
The only one that I am like 100% confident that I have in the right place is the Long Con, because literally the last words in it is a renegade's final words to a drifter before resuming the hunt.
Yeah.
So like I mean, like, context clues here, kids. That's probably the last one.
Part of it is probably going to help when we end up getting a hold of some of the order via what am I thinking here now? If we can figure when we get the stuff unlocked through the books and everything, then we can actually see the order that they have it listed in underneath Bungie's systems.
Oh, like in the actual, in the actual UI. Yeah,
right.
That's a valid point too.
When we see it, I think that way that'll give us the absolute measure behind it. But I think that's the thing that'll hold us back for the tiniest of bits, which isn't much, because I know a lot of people are actually starting to get a hold of those, and I can start to go back on it. The Malfeasance quest was the last note that we needed for it. All of the extra entries that we were missing are now unlocked, thanks to that quest.
Ah, okay. Yeah, because I think Dino in chat right now says that he has 9 out of the 10, so...
Yeah. Like I say, I hear when you complete the quest, you should be able to get everything, or all of them are then available to us within the game, basically. So that is the one thing that I at least have kind of heard, or a couple things I've heard about it.
Well, and so kind of diving into, talking about the Drifter and why people are so intrigued and yet turned away from him. I guess the first question that a lot of people I've seen kind of debate about the Drifter's Gambit is who inside this. Yeah. The narrator is an individual who goes by the title a renegade. I kind of see that as being Shin, simply because that's pretty much the only other reference that we've seen that term used in a naming format, really. And then also as we get into the lore entries a little bit, it'll also make a little bit more sense, because the individual who's narrating is a hunter who is a gunslinger, which we'll talk about especially when we start talking about Callum in, I believe that is Artifacts and Old Friends, I believe is the one. Artifacts and Old Friends, and then Shadow on a Wall are the entries that really kind of point to the renegade being a gunslinger. And then obviously the next question is, who is the Drifter? Which that is the, that's the $1 million question at the point. We don't know. There are a lot of theories. Some make sense. Some, are definitely just spin foil. And then there's also the question of, there's also the question of who is the renegade talking to? So he's talking to someone about the Drifter, because all these entries are titled A Renegade's Observations of a Drifter. And he is talking, so he's not talking to the Drifter, he is talking to someone. And interestingly enough, I'm actually kind of making the argument that the audience here is Lord Shax, is actually not our guardian. And we'll get into this a little bit as well when we go into it, but let me flip through this real quick, because one of the entries is talking about the price of a double-sided coin. Is it starts off with explaining, so quote here, he says, quote, "You have places, cleared zones, not necessarily the safest spots, but not wholly untamed. I say we, you, allow the drifter to run his game, and lets you and me watch. We watch the action. We watch him. We watch who plays and who doesn't. On top of that, we watch their aggression, who's diving too deep, too fast, who's less keen to grow their knowledge, their strength, and who's simply looking to unleash themselves. The true promise of this gambit is what you and I can learn about our enemies, maybe even about ourselves. That has to be first and foremost. After that, we assess Gambit's value and its risk. If the danger escalates, we shut it down. If any guardians go too far, we shut it down. And them, if need be. My gut says we won't have to. My gut says, against everything I was raised to believe, this is our next step forward. And here's the rub. You know this, but only fair that I reiterate. As secret as this whole mess is, and as vigilant as we'll need to be, word must spread. It must. And when it does, I need you to corral Zavala and any others who don't understand. Because the other side of that jade coin is the trap being set. This long con. The final bend after a long haul. If Drifter plays his part, and I believe he will, then those who test the edges of the light will hear tell and come a-callin'. The shadows brought to light. So, and that's the end. And I'm going to end the quote there, which is, it's honestly nearly the entire entry. But anyways, that's more my idea that, you know, he's talking about the audience that he's talking to has the cleared zones, you know, blah, blah, blah. And then he also goes on in, I believe it is A Matter of Trust. He is speaking to the audience, or no, Checking the Chamber. My apologies. Checking the Chamber. He introduces the idea that he calls them your jacks. He says, your jacks sure can clear a table. Combat area is clean. We're prepped and ready, set for the first run on Nessus. He refers to the audience having guardians. He says, the drifter will pick up your guardians en route. Have your jacks primed to engage if and when it all goes wrong. So again, I kind of am seeing this audience member as being inside. I see it being Shaxx. I kind of argue that this is. I view this as Shin coming to Shaxx with this idea of basically using the drifter to capture the shadows. Is kind of how I read this whole thing. Oh, cool. Okay, sorry. Dino just sent the order that he has, and the order that he's seeing. I think uneasy, justified, step, artifacts, shadow. All right, yep. His order is the same as the order that is on Ishtar.
Okay.
Cool.
Yeah, I have a feeling that they're pulling straight from the API, and that's the order
yeah.
that's
I'm
gonna
assuming
pull
that
it
the
in.
ID, the API item ID is probably playing into that a bit as well.
Yeah, that's what I was kind of thinking. If that's the case, that at least makes it easier for us to reference later books then too. But
Right.
yeah, that'll make it easier for looking over. That's good.
Also,
really good.
Yes, Malfeasance, Maleficent, I don't even care. The quest that gives you the big gun that everyone wants is giving us details that aren't in the lore book, and this is a callback to the Ancient Apocalypse armor. For one, Drifter believes that he's the last of his crew now that Callum is dead, and Shin's golden gun apparently is very unique. Which, you know, here's a small little random tangent here on Shin. I would encourage people to go and look up the ghost stories, the lore book Ghost Stories. It's Confession of Hope Part 1 and Part 2. I want to know what you guys think, because I read that and I can't help but read that as an explanation of how Shin got created.
The
Hashtag.
part 1, part 2 for what again? I'm sorry.
Part A Confession of Hope in the
Oh,
ghost
yeah.
stories.
Yeah.
It's an unknown ghost who resurrects a young child and then gives it to another group of humans to raise. Which, I'm sorry, explains Shin's abilities and the problem that we've had with Shin. It explains nearly everything if that child is Shin. And they're running from Fallen. And the call out line, or the throwaway line from the Dwindler's Ridge saga about Shin's memory of the light kind of glimmering. Yeah, I mean, like, I read that. I was rereading all the ghost stories today to kind of get there's a lot of little tidbits in there, by the way, that are really good.
Yeah.
But those two especially, like, I read that a while back and I was like, huh, that's interesting. And then I read them again today and I was like, oh, I can't shake that is the explanation. That's the explanation that Bungie's giving us for Shin and how he has the abilities that he has, even though he's a child.
Right.
So,
well,
yeah,
other...
Dino said that this is exactly my other thing. Is like the only thing that holds him back from saying that definitively is Shin is that he wants to know if John wrote those entries.
Well, the other thing that I've apparently heard from this quest is that we actually hear Shin's voice as well. So this quest is an extremely important one to govern and push to try to get done.
Right, and it also pushes forward the story of the shadows, which goes back to the connection of the story of Yor.
Yeah, which is what we were asking for how long here?
Oh gosh, yeah.
I'm totally okay with that.
Yeah, and I am totally fine with that. And so to kind of bring it back into the Drifter's Gambit, the Renegade is presenting, again, my interpretation of this, and I'm completely open for other people's interpretation. I would love to hear your guys' thoughts on this. But my interpretation is that the Renegade, who is Shin, is presenting this as a way of capturing those Guardians who are kind of causing problems, if you will, to Shax, who is going by using the Drifter to kind of bait them and tease them into the light. And so this is basically, it's a presentation of sorts. It's him being like, this is my idea and this is why, even though this sounds like a terrible idea, it is a terrible idea, but this is also like the only option we really have if we really want to shut these guys down. And so you kind of get that, you get this idea of this whole presentation, starting with the uneasy feeling. He starts by saying, I followed him, I've tracked him, and he's not like them. Speaking about the shadows, he does say, like, there are shadows in his past, and and then he's kind of being like, we don't really know what's going on. We do kind of see that the Drifter is a anomaly as far as Guardians are concerned. He doesn't really hold to anything just yet. This kind of goes on in Justified Means. He says the Drifter wasn't always his target. And the fact is that the Drifter actually only came to his attention when he hooked up with the Shadows. And this is where you kind of can cross-reference the Warlock armor with these entries. And he explains the Drifter as, quote, the strange light bearer who journeyed beyond the system's edge, the lone wanderer who was only a, air quote, guardian by reductive modern definitions. He had a ghost. He was touched by the light. His motivations, though, were his own. Some might say selfish, and I'd have to agree. In regards to the concept of duty and devotion and using one's gifts for the betterment of humanity, not his play. The city be damned, the traveler be damned, the light be damned. Which makes his run to the tower and his newfound benevolence all the more curious. End quote. So, and then this is also where we get a confirmation of the timing of this whole conversation, because this is where we get mention of Gaul, the severance of light, the whole Red War situation. And so this is also putting back into back into the conversation, it's kind of confirming, okay, this is actually happening right now. Just in case anyone was doubting that. And then this is also where you get the explanation that the drifter will be, quote, a necessary catalyst, and if not, he sure makes for a fine cut of bait. Which is, I love that line. I'm like, this is like the best. Again, the other reason I really argue that the Renegade is Shin is just the attitude that is being like, I can't help but read this as having that Western like twang attitude of like, this is the lone gunman hunting down the evil posse.
Hashtag!
Right.
Pew pew! Chew chew!
All right, so that brings us up into Step into the Shade, where we kind of get more like it really points to the patience and the perceptiveness of the Renegade. This is where it starts really kind of making the sense that he is actually stalking and hunting these people. Because the Step into the Shade is really kind of where he describes what the Drifter has been doing in the past and like the setup for Gambit. And he also almost makes a defense for the idea of what the Drifter is kind of presenting. And then so he kind of says, he doesn't see any other way forward. He describes the light as fragile but quick. The dark is dense and slow. And if we want to control the balance, tip it in our favor, we must play in the gray in between. And so he's talking about the shadows. He's talking about he wants to confront those shadows who would see it shift further towards the night. And so again, this kind of plays into the interpretation of the Renegade being Shin, because we know from the last word, Ghost Fragment, last word 5, I want to say, that Shin has pretty much pledged to eradicating the ghost. Or, sorry, not the ghost, the shadows. Because his ghost is kind of pushing him to do that as well. Let's see. And then the Renegade also calls into point that the Vanguard is flawed and frightened. He's like, they're noble, but they're flawed. And while most Guardians wouldn't dare it, because of the loss of legends of heroes, such as, Rezel, basically. But at the same time, he said, but things have changed. And this kind of calls back into the other kind of theme of Forsaken is there are basically proxy alarms going off that we might be tripping as Guardians, as the Guardian. We see this presented in the Forsaken Prince lore book, in which, in which Uldren makes the comment about the Black Heart being a bait for something that's monitoring the Traveler for its revival. And so, like, by us killing the Black Heart, we set off that alarm, signaling to whatever that the Traveler had achieved a certain point in its rehabilitation. And so that's another point that the Renegade's making here. He's like, quote, the Orc Slayers and their like have danced within Ascendant realms. The nightmare legends of Bonewalkers and Netherworlds have been cast into the light. Old fears are now trampled beneath enduring triumph. Now, if ever, is the time to step proud into the unknown and bathe it in our light. And then, he goes on to say, or maybe the Drifter pulls a double cross and our end is met. No way of knowing, no way to tell. And he says, trust ourselves, trust our instinct, our light. And then we kind of get into a conversation about... sorry, chat's talking.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, sorry. They're confirming that yes, John Goff was actually involved in. Yeah. So that brings us to artifacts and old friends. So this is an explanation here, just real summary real quick of the Renegade and the Drifter meeting for the first time. The fun thing about this particular entry is that we get a lot of breadcrumbs about things that I am so curious about. So to run through the list of things that we get mentioned here that don't get any explanation and drive me up a wall. First, the core mines of Saturn, the Luvial Crux, the shift chasms below Ilios, the fourth tomb of Nezarec, the idols of Lower Sol, the treasure of Exodus Prime, the solar engine of Dead Star 6. This is also where we get the idea that what did he say? This is also where we get the idea that he's like a hoarder of relics. So he's the Renegade says, quote, I think he's making most of it up, but he's got relics and etchings. He's got materials not of this system, odd metals, Ascidian flames, thought engines, edible null cakes, and a stuffed something that looks like a rabbit biofused with a cephalopod. He keeps all this stuff to himself. His gits, he calls them, end quote. Which also kind of goes back to one of my kind of personal theories that the Drifter is Pahanin, but...
I got a counter to that, but yeah.
Right, yeah, but I mean, like, it's just one of those, like, weird, like, it's like, what? Like, really? A rabbit with the cephalopod? What? Why?
Yeah,
really. Why do we have this?
Right.
And this is also where we get the explanation, or well, a explanation maybe, of what his ship, ironically, the qualifier that he uses is maybe. It says he calls it an artifact, but it's more than that. Just don't know what exactly. He said he got far out as he's ever been. Said it was from a place cold enough to snuff out your light. I asked him, was it Vex, Hive, KG is all? He says, no, it was just other, and it was powerful. Maybe. That was his qualifier. Maybe. Why the hell bring it to the inner system then? Maybes are trouble. He's got an answer for everything. He says, brother, maybes are where the real treasure hides. Which I love that. And this is also a call out to again, the Warlock armor. A lot of people are connecting this artifact that he's dragging to the monolith that is described in the Warlock armor. And the interesting thing about the description in the Warlock armor is that they actually encountered a proto-hive being that was able to snuff out light. Mm-hmm. The best explanation that I can think of is the Yaslana from Star Wars and their force negating abilities, which makes me hopeful. Which makes me hopeful that we'll get Thrawn. But anyways, and this is when you get the Drifter deflecting the questions that the Renegade is having by casually dropping the name Callum. And so this is something that, you know, we find that the Renegade has been hunting Callum for a while at this point. And so this is what brings us to the next entry, which is Shadow on a Wall. And Shadow on the Wall basically introduces or starts with the statement, I knew Callum by another name, a hated name. So there's a interesting connection there. The Drifter had run with Callum's crew for some time. I get the sense that he would have been one and the same as them, lockstep down Sorrow's Road, if they had met sooner. He said, hell, maybe they were lockstep. Maybe his Gambit was theirs. And so this is where the Renegade kind of says, you know, well, maybe this trap that we're setting is a trap that was set for us. So, like, you know, the double cross. And so this is where basically the Drifter betrays Callum and gives the Renegade the location of where Callum is holed up. Now, this is also where you learn a little bit more about the shadows that were running with Callum. He said that the Drifter the Drifter had explained, basically the crew had split up in order to keep the Renegade off their trail. Because this way they could, spread out and cause chaos and multiple different things, which would give them conflicting stories and all this stuff. And also it would slow him down because they said that, they have 1-to-1, they'd have a hard time walking away. But if they are all together, while it would make them stronger and more likely to walk away from a fight with him, the ability to track them would be much easier. So they went with confusing their enemy instead of trying to force a fight. And then this is where we get the introduction of Callum, is in the latter half of Shadow on a Wall. And I'm going to just read this real quick. It says, Callum entered. Could hear him before I saw him. He was arguing with his ghost. I waited on the hope they'd spill goods I could use to track the others. No such luck. Their words were heated. Callum had gone too far. His ghost was angry. I don't blame her. It caught me that she always used his proper name, Callum, and not his other. She still cared, still hoped. Then she screamed. I drew and stepped into the light. Callum had his ghost in his left hand. It was silent. With his right, he had stabbed her through the optics with a sickly dagger, a tool carved from the jagged spikes fired from a weapon I shall not name. The ghost was dead, and Callum just laughed. I think because he knew what came next. He and I had words, told me I'd never kill 'em all. Then he dropped the shell and went for his shooter. I lit my fire and painted him on the wall without another word. End quote. Which is, I really, I really like the emotions that are able to be captured in here. And so Callum is dead. Again, according to this story, he's been shot with a golden gun. And I believe in the quest there is actually a shadow on the wall for the Maleficent.
I don't know.
I'm going to wait for a second for chat to catch up because I think Dino has actually completed that quest. But I believe if my memory serves me right from what I was seeing online, there is actually a shadow. Yes, okay, Dino is confirming. There is a shadow on the wall. So I kind of get the picture of the nuclear blast, from Hiroshima or Nagasaki, with the people having the shadows on the wall. Oh, and there is a dead ghost on the floor. So sad day. I don't think we ever learn the name of the ghost that I can remember, but Callum has been shotted. And this actually, that's the end of Shadow on a Wall. And this brings us to the bright side of a bad idea, which is basically the Renegade kind of coming back and saying, at this point, the Drifter had basically kind of, as much as possible, won the Renegade's trust, but he wouldn't say trust. He'd made him comfortable with the idea of him. And so the Renegade's kind of like, talking about, this is before he came to, again, I get the feeling that he's talking to Lord Shax. And he says, this is before I came to you, but only just. This is me smoothing out the rough angles before risking a proposition I know carries baggage. Anyway, he and I went out, found a spot we could be alone, and he showed me. He showed me proof that all of his relics, artifacts, treasures, and junk weren't just for show. Our shady friend actually went out and lassoed himself a little piece of hell. While Guardians have been waging war with the Taken, while the city's newest legends have been trespassing on Ascendant ground and kicking in Taken skulls, the Drifter's been playing Warlock, which he ain't if it wasn't clear. Not by common understanding, anyway. In drawing strength from curiosity and using knowledge to bend understanding to his will, this wily blankety-blank has long since shed any pretensions of class or the limitations therein. While you lot have been having your fun, drunk on loot, dancing on the corpses of your enemies, he's been watching, learning, stealing, and planning. Now, I make no promises that what he's done was ever intended for the greater good. Point of fact, I actively doubt it, but here we are. He's kit-bashed Vex tech with fallen components, married it to Hive logic, and scavenged Golden Age science with a sprinkling of who knows what. And he's... Hold up. I know this sounds bad. Sounds like just the kind of trouble we squish. But he's secured a pocket of the Ascendant Plane. Not a throne world, nothing that grand, but a big enough chunk to matter. And he's gone and caged an army. A taken army. Leftovers from Oryx's reign, something new, something old, something hers. Can't say. Don't know, but he has them there. He says it's to hold them, study them. But the best bet says his intentions aren't so clean. Purity of intent aside, this is what he wanted to show me. This is why he's here, his Gambit. He wants to help humanity, help us poor fools who call ourselves guardians, learn how to control not only the Taken, but the powers that bind them. Sounds like a bad idea. I agree. Bigger picture? Sometimes bad ideas are the best option. Hell, sometimes they're the only. End quote. Oh, man. So there's a bit to unpack there. First question, and chat's already kind of jumping on this one. Who is her? You know, who is this? So he says, you know, leftovers from Oryx's reign, something new, something old, something hers. I don't know, Beard, do you have any thoughts on that one? I mean, let me rephrase that. Let me rephrase that. Do you have any solid theories on that one?
No, not really, because leftovers from Oryx's reign can be quite a bit of things. And if it is Oryx specifically, then that also brings up plenty of other questions besides, because if it's from Oryx and not from one of the sisters, that's how I should kind of span this. Then it could be something related to Crota. It could be a son of it could be another son. It could be Nokris, for all we know. It could be from what Zol had. It could be the worms in general. At least initial impressions from just hearing that's way too. It's way too open, I guess. That's the only thing on that angle.
Yeah, and to real quick to interject, to be clear, also, since this is an audio podcast and not a visual one, the hers that we're talking about is capitalized.
Right.
So it's not just like it's a random person they know. It's someone specific, which is where the debate kind of comes in. So sorry. So go on there, Beard.
No, you're good. I don't have much else I can really add on that end. Per usual with Bungie, there's a lot of things that are open at the moment to interpretation, but I'm anxious to see where they lead it. Obviously, I just don't have much else that I can really add in with it, unfortunately.
Dino just gave us a quote from the quest real quick to kind of back up onto Shadow on the Wall. There is a last words of the fight so in Shadow Wall there's a mention of he and I had words. The words are from, and this is from the quest, I believe, is the Renegade. So the first line is the Renegade. He says, "I gave you a chance, gave all of you a chance. I told you not to follow him." Callum's response is, "You and I are the same. Sometimes we do the wrong thing for the right reasons." Renegade, spoken like a true disciple. "If you have any last words, now's the time." Callum, "You'll never kill us all." And then the Renegade says, I don't have to. You're killing yourselves." And that's when I'm assuming the bang bang happened.
Yeah.
So yes. So yeah, and that's where Dino had mentioned that earlier in chat, that the quest kind of gave us a little bit more detail on some pieces of the story here than what was in the lore tree. And so Dino, thank you for that. That actually is really, really good information. Really appreciate that. Oh, and apparently the line ends with 3 golden gun shots. So, yes, it actually was bang, bang, bang. Like, oh man. Which to jump back where we were, that brings us to the price of a double-sided coin. And this is where really, in my mind, this kind of confirms that he is presenting this to Shaxx. So we kind of talked about this earlier. This is where he's talking to the audience that he's talking to. He specifically calls out, these zones, which are basically, they sound like they're crucible arenas. And then he concludes this one. So I've already kind of talked about this one, so I'm not going to spend too much time on it. He concludes this one by saying, "You can stop this here and now. I'll put a bullet in him. Be done with it. Just say the word." So he's putting this kind of firmly in Shaxx's court, if this is Shaxx. As far as if you want me to pull the cord, all you have to do is say boo, and I'll put it down. Which actually, I not to stress that, but that really points to something within the Renegade's view of this whole thing that I think is a clear separation here than the Drifter or any of the Shadows. Not to kind of further distinguish between the two here. The Renegade, and that kind of goes back to the last words that Dino gave us, the Renegade is getting called out. Sometimes we do the wrong thing for the right reasons. And that's true. Like, the Renegade definitely is more of a vigilante figure. So is Shin. But the difference is that the Renegade right there, I think that kind of highlights the difference between between the Renegade and the Drifter and the Shadows. He recognizes what he is doing is, a bad idea. And he's deferring to someone who is, whether that deference is because of seniority, or because he recognizes the individual that he's deferring to as being more securely on the side of the light, whatever it is, he is quite honestly saying, hey, I'm using you to condition my choice. Like, I'm running this by you, not just because I need your help, but also to make sure that this doesn't, that I'm not slipping into the darkness. I'm not becoming the monsters that I'm hunting, is kind of how I read that. And I think that's a really, for me, that is really kind of a important piece of the Renegade that I don't know. I haven't seen a lot of discussion around just yet, but I think that's a really big distinction between what makes him not evil, even though he deals kind of in the gray. He's not dealing in the shadow like the others are. So that brings us to checking the chamber. Again, this is where we get a reference to your red jacks. And this is where we get so this is the introduction, and we get the idea. Okay, so Shaxx or whoever has agreed. We're going to go ahead and we're going to try this out. He says, the Drifter will pick up your Guardians en route. Have your jacks primed to engage when it all goes wrong. So, they're hiding in the eaves, ready to close in and shut it down. He says, after, if it runs smooth and we're not all dead, he says he'll set up shop in the tower. Seems risky, yeah, but that's his lot to handle. Truth is, I'd much rather have him tower side where he can be watched and collected if it comes to that. The alternative, him running free and clear through the system, isn't an option. He's too much of a liability on his own. Luckily, he seems open to having you nearby, which actually, now that I think about that, there's another confirmation here too, because one of his idle lines is complaining that he can't go anywhere without hearing the one-horned blankety blank shouting. He complains apparently a lot about Shaxx. Yeah, and then we also kind of get the sense that, Drifter is also in his own way setting up a bigger picture. Like, there's something going on with him that he's also kind of playing everybody, like in the same capacity that the Renegade is playing him to bait out the Shadows. The Drifter is playing the Guardians to either build up something to face down something bigger, or baiting, kind of his own thing. And that brings us to a matter of trust, which is the second to last entry. And this one takes place after what was probably the initial Gambit run, and this is the Renegade's response to the Primeval. He says, quote, "Well, that didn't go as planned, but your Guardians rallied and saw it through, and the Drifter did his best to fill them in on the sudden change state he dropped on them. I was seconds from rushing in and toasting him, but he handled the situation and set the teams up to finish the match. To be honest, I thought it would all go much worse. What concerns me is he never mentioned the word Primeval before, not once, and that's a problem for obvious reasons. Tearing soldiers of the deep from another realm is crossing a bridge too far as it is, but those beasts, those weren't normal, taken, possessed, and set to rage. They were born of that shadow realm, and they were angry. Worse, they were hungry for the light. You could feel it, even a ways off. Their aura and their rage weighed on me, cast a shadow I could feel in my core. That he kept them from us is unsettling. He says it was a necessary deception. I put my gun to his head and asked if there were any others he'd mind sharing. He just laughed as he does, twiddling that coin of his, and smiled that winner's smile. Told me to take a load off. I almost shot him then and there." He said that we never had agreed to let him run his competition if we'd known the full extent of the danger. He's not wrong, probably, but it's hard to move forward knowing the thing we've known all along is true. The Drifter can't be trusted. And then blah, blah, blah. He ends with, "I'll leave it in your capable hands. I'll be watching. My presence only muddies the water, so I'll be watching from afar. If we're lucky, this Gambit will draw the interest of the rest of his old crew, and the shadows will make themselves known. Till then, I'll return to the hunt, see if I can cut him off at the pass, wherever it may be. Oh, and before I forget, at the risk of repeating myself, keep my real name off your lips. He don't know my face, but he sure as hell knows my name. This all goes sideways otherwise." So this is kind of like a last word to Shax, the audience. And then finally the long con. And this is kind of, I kind of want to say this is just kind of like the ramblings of an epilogue-esque, because this isn't really to anybody in particular. But it's basically the Renegade saying, kind of talking to himself. And I'm just going to read it because there's really no way to summarize this and do it justice. So this is the long con. He says, "Can you do it, Drifter? Can you make the man with the golden gun the villain in the eyes of those who attempt the dark? It's the final piece. Can you make them fear him? Because if you can, any Guardian who truly embraces the nature of your Gambit will find themselves a real connection to the mantle of that dead legend. They will take bear that vile title. They will wear his vile colors. They will challenge and even remake the infamy of his vile deeds. Through these temptations, they will grow strong, but the hatred must be true, driven by the power they find in your wicked game, sealed in the fear you'll seed in the name of the man with the golden gun. I wish there was another way, but your old brothers and sisters in shadow are too far gone. You've seen it. You know as well as me, better than me, the path they walk offers only ruin. They must be stopped. So spread your unholy word, brother. Give new life to old myths. And when that hateful name Dredgen spreads throughout the system, his real disciples will have no choice but to confront their sins. And you and me will be the ones hearing their confessions. Oh, and one more thing. Let me know who has the gall to change their names. I might want to give them a word or two." I love it. I love it. So yes, that is A Drifter's Gambit. Summary form. Beard, now that you're caught up, what do you want to talk about?
I don't know.
Yeah. Chat is going on and on about it. Oh man. I mean, I guess this is also a good point to kind of bring in the conversation about the ancient apocalypse armor.
Yeah.
I don't know if you have anything you want to talk about before we jump over there real quick.
Not really. I think that's a fair spot, honestly, because just the way that the Drifter kind of runs and acts and is that speaks a lot to his character to begin with, or why it is that he's doing what he is. Um, Additionally, I think the other main thing that I kind of want to point out, of course, is that there is a lot that is said, but there's also not that much that is said. It is
Right.
still a lot of information that's like really out there and kind of not exactly known. So we can speculate all that we kind of need to or want to talk about, but that's kind of the issue. This kind of feels like the game that they were, or the stories that they were trying to tell in the beginning of D2. And with Forsaken, it just kind of really picks into where it is they want to go.
Right. And I so kind of before we jump into the armor too, what are your thoughts on the jade coin that he holds? I know, like, within feng shui and, a lot of, Chinese philosophy, I think maybe would be the best word, because it's not really theology, but a lot of their mode of assigning symbolism to or significance to different elements. Jade is seen as kind of a manifestation of good luck and prosperity. So you see a lot of, like, the jade frog, for instance, is very, the money frog, or right. I guess money toad, I think is what's called.
Yeah, technically.
And that's the one. That's the little jade frog that you usually see it carved, and it has like a coin in its mouth. Yeah, dancing in chat. Jade coin, jade rabbit, squid.
It's kind of all over the place.
But I guess he flips. So you see a lot of his decisions are based on the flip a coin, kind of like Two-Face.
Right.
You kind of get that feeling, and then there's also the idea of the Gambit. He's always talking about the banking of moats, the worth of paying off people. He's always calling in bribes. That's where to kind of segue into the armor sets. This is what we see within the Titan armor sets. He not only kind of bribes Redix and Joxer. Joxer, by the way, is also mentioned earlier in the Great Ahamkara Hunt, the plate of the Great Hunt. He is the individual who was assigned the task of acquiring weapons from the Techian Ilian for the Vanguard to hunt down the Ahamkara. So that's the interesting connection there for Joxer. Redrix, obviously, that name is either hated or loved, depending on where you fall within that particular quest from Season 3. Redix also has one of the best lore entries in Warmind, where he's at the receiving end of Lord Shax's fist, and his ghost has a bit of trouble getting him back. Sorry, I didn't mean to. Sorry about that. But so he bribes Redix and Joxer to look the other way when he steals all the Tex Mechanica. But the other thing that happens in the Titan armor in the helm, he actually is in a jump ship with another Titan who he has bribed to get him to the train. So he is not above using his connections of debt to get things that he wants. Kind of going back into the whole, gambling underworld type situation. But the other thing is, like, the presentation of Gambit has always been with this like shower of these jade coins, right? It's often seen like in a Casino Royale type situation. Z in chat is jade is also believed to ward off evil. In China, it's considered the stone of heaven. Which I guess I'm curious too, because he flips the coin in Gambit to determine who you're going to fight, but it's a two-sided coin, but he has 4 choices.
Which I'm also trying to figure out if he has that many possibilities at his disposal, because he's also seen as playing with a few of them. The one that I quoted at the top of the show, actually, the line of, "All right, Mavericks, let's see who you're fighting today."
Oh, you think he has different, like a
he
different set of
has-
coins, basically? Yeah.
Yeah, he has like 3 or 4 different sets that it seems like he's able to call on.
Okay, and that makes
Even
more
then-
sense. I was like, I'm sitting there, I'm like, is he like sleight of handing his way through this entire thing? Which I also
Yeah,
would not be surprised.
It seems like he has about four in total, but I could be wrong on that as an overall. But at least from what I have seen, it looks like 4 is the magic number for him.
Which also would
Even
make
then-
sense because that would give him one of each and also allow the Taken to always be an option.
Right.
Yep. So yeah, and that's kind of dancing Veru in chat right now. Says that it doesn't. It also implies that he doesn't prioritize any of the typical enemies except the Taken. At least that's how I interpret his decision making via coin flip. Right.
Well,
Okay.
the Taken seemed to be his ultimate goal anyway.
Right.
Whatever seems to be behind, their ultimate power energy source that they're basically feeding him.
Well, and I mean that's actually a really good point too. That power source. So we used to have motes of light, but that's not what we're dealing with here. We're dealing with motes of darkness.
Right.
And so, what are your thoughts there? Do we have any explanation outside of this that deal with the motes of darkness?
Nothing that I can think of as a whole. Nothing that I have been able to think of as a whole, because they're definitely kind of as soon as I had read the entry that dealt with those, I was trying to figure out like a way to compare, combine them, whatever. I outside of it just being like, well, the light can do it, so the dark can too. I don't see like a lot of extra contradicting elements that kind of deal with it. Like you can make the dark as much as you can the light. I think it's just interesting enough though to take the fact that the darkness modes seem to be tangled in with the Taken as being like they're the pure entity or close to pure entity of the darkness is what we're kind of getting at the moment.
Yeah, and the other thing too is, in the same, so this is just kind of a thought process here, but in the same way that we
totally stream of consciousness,
Yeah,
I think, at this point.
in the same way that we see like originally, for those who might not have been players in like early D1, motes of light were a early form of economy, basically, that we used with the speaker. The speaker collected the motes of light. I think I think there was a period where Zur was collecting them, if I remember, but that was like really early, and that was really only for a very brief moment. Mostly it was with the speaker. And basically the way that you got it was through, through killing your enemy. So I think it was it you leveled up and you got a mote, or I can't remember exactly how.
And then the economy changed and you got 5, but it was your collection of light, basically. That's how you ended up getting a hold of them.
Right.
But,
and so, but the emphasis here is that you had, Doom for Zombie, and Eva collected motes of light too. But the concept here was that you had to create them. These were created items from your activity. And so my point here is that those were created by the light. The motes of darkness are also created by you killing enemies in the Gambit game. Thank you. Dancing grabbed the Grimoire card for me. It says, but he happily accepts these motes, points of light, willed into being by an exercise of a mighty guardian's power. Some say they will one day become the souls of new ghosts. Others believe they feed the intricate machinery that the speaker tends, which is the orrery that was in the old tower. But my emphasis here is that points of light willed into being by an exercise of a mighty guardian's power. Okay, that's the mode of light. A mode of darkness, if going back to, I don't know, who was that character who talks about symmetry and equalization? Ulantan. If you look at it in the same concept, a mode of darkness is also something that's willed into being by the power of the guardians. But the thing is that when you bank those motes, you're actually giving them to the drifter. Right? They're not actually being used at the time. They are being collected by him. Yep. So think about that. He is running Gambit. He's basically investing time to guardians who can generate more motes of darkness than he could by himself, and he's getting a what's called a return on investment of significant proportions. Because every Gambit match, if you are able to summon a primeval, everyone's like, oh yeah, you got to get 75. We have in the lore where the Drifter can summon 9 primevals with the use of 1 mote. So it's not a matter of he needs 75 motes for 1 primeval. It's he's giving you a primeval to fight after you give him at least 75 motes. So his return of investment is at minimum 74 every match. And that's with just one side. If he has 2 sides, double that. So what is he doing with the motes of darkness that he's collecting? Because that's a copious amount of motes of darkness. And again, he's demonstrated that he can summon a number of primevals with just 1. Yeah. Yeah, Z is actually saying in chat what I'm kind of getting at. Gambit is a big pyramid scheme. Uh-huh. He has got us all generating all these motes, and he is literally just walking away with the profits.
Yep.
Sorry, I'm like that has been bugging me ever since I started thinking about like what the motes really were. And if you look at the way that we get motes, it's by killing things inside Gambit. Yep. So, and if you kind of think about that, extrapolate that even more, he's only 1 guardian, well, quote, or light bearer. He's only 1 light bearer, yeah. But now he has upwards of, 4 versus 4, 8 guardians in a match at any given time. Yep. I mean, the ROI on that is, and I'm very envious of his investment strategy. That's what I'm just gonna say that out loud because, geez, he really knows. He knows. Yeah, Trigger is saying in chat, he's like, that gets him 674 primeval taken. Doom, this is why I keep my motes.
Well, I do think it important to at least call out the compressed mote is the thing that it seemed like he was taking,
right, which is where like you kind of like, where is that, how does that get created, right?
I'm gonna say those banks are the thing that seem like they're able to create them, but how is then the question, of course. Yes.
Now we're getting a call for reporting the Drifter to the SEC.
Not wrong. Maybe the Better Business Bureau too. This seems like a really
Better Business Bureau. Like there was false advertising. They said Crucible, right. Not primevals.
Right.
Oh man. Okay, so real quick, let's jump over real quick to the Warlock armor. So this armor, I think of the 3 sets of armor, this is the one that to me kind of holds the most significance. Like I said, the armor for the Titan, The armor for the Titan is really him kind of acquiring the equipment. The armor for the Hunter is him acquiring the location. And then the Warlock armor doesn't kind of, it's like, what is the point of this? Like, what is he acquiring here? Well, it almost seems like he's acquiring the artifact that's behind his ship.
Yeah.
So Ancient Apocalypse, Warlock, if we start with the hood, and then we're going to work our way down, he basically goes through and he says, I'll just read it real quick because it's just easier to do it this way. So the helm, he says, I had a crew once, my best friends, which isn't saying much, trust me. They're all dead now, almost to a man. So what does that mean for all you little guardians running out there who are my new best friends? Don't think about that one too hard. Anyway, my crew, or little subset of it, we leave the system together. Dawn of the city age at that time. We were looking for something greater than light, because we had seen that light can be the cause of so much strife. We searched far and wide, must have been hundreds of years. We found a planet beyond the system bristling with an energy that repulsed light. Naturally, we were curious. We landed, intended to settle and conduct the research necessary to make this energy portable. A weapon out of legend called Thorn had similar light-repressing capabilities. It seemed promising, but hand to my heart, it was cold. Humans were not meant for that place. Every once in a while, a member of the crew would succumb, died where they stood or sat. Thank the plains for our ghosts. We were in high spirits. We were veterans, grizzled. Hundreds of years in space will do that. Which brings us to the robes. So there we were, on that cold hunk of ice with no name, just me and my crew. Everything peachy keen. We discovered some kind of alien monolith, a facility left by the inhabitants of that planet long gone by then. But trapped inside was a creature. In a cage of some sort, frozen in ice. An exhibit? Was it some kind of zoo? Still not sure to this day. We should have brought a scientist. All we had were, well, guys who thought we looked tough in dark colors. During our long stay on that planet, we found many of those monoliths, each with their own captured creature. Anyway, the creature, looked like it shared common bioenergetics with the Hive, but there were no records then or since that I've seen of humanity's encounters with them. And the creature had a property of the Hive that the Hive did not have. It produced a field that repressed light, like a darkness zone, but contained to a gooey, vacuous form with no head. The anti-light fields we had detected from orbit that spread across the planet, it was these things. Our ship's scanners indicated thousands of them were on this planet with us. We were ecstatic. In hindsight, we all could have done with a few less of them. So that brings us to the gloves. My crew and I quickly learned that the creatures in the monolith facilities were not the only ones on that damn rock. Plenty of them roaming around out in the wild where it was cold, but less cold than the frozen cages that contained the ones in the monoliths. How'd we find out? Well, one of us died in our sleep. Not that uncommon, or tragic actually, happened a lot. Damn cold out there. Except this time, that fella's ghost couldn't resurrect him. Turns out one of those creatures just slithered by, and close proximity to it from inside our shelter just silenced that poor bastard's light. It was unfortunate, but it also lit a fire under us. The next morning we realized we had a potential weapon in our hands that could change everything in the battles of light versus light. We knew we had to find a way to get these creatures off their icy home, and we needed to find it fast. Despite our breakthrough, tensions were a little high. Some of us thought it was awful convenient the creature wandered by and happened to take out only one of us. And so soon after, we realized the value of them. And that brings us to the boots. I mentioned tension was high among the crew in the last one, right? That's what I thought. Well, it got worse. Another one of us died. In the exact same way. Even after we took up residence in one of the monoliths. Idiot just froze to death. His ghost too whacked out by light repression to do anything about it. Died in his sleep. The others were not happy about it. I was not happy about it. We had been looking for a way to contain the creatures. The monoliths seemed to have some kind of freeze tech, if you could call it technology, that we could use if only we could replicate it. I'm a pretty savvy mechanic, but we couldn't figure it out. We started to blame each other. Someone must have lured one of those things near crew quarters. To this day, I still don't know for sure. Why kill just one of us? For what? It was more plausible that the creatures did it knowingly, a punishment for our intrusion. But there was no malice that we could detect, only biology. At the time, we didn't care. Eventually, one of them drew a gun. I knew it would happen, and I had prepared a soothing speech to smooth things over just in case. I told him to holster that smoke wagon, and the next time any one of them tried it again, I'd kill them all without a second thought. I didn't speak plainly often, but when I did, even that crew listened. And then finally, this is the bond. We were at our wits' end. A year on the planet, and we had been completely unable to capture or tame the creatures that had become our sole objective. They were our bane. Our ship had long been rendered useless by the extreme cold. We had all died 100,000 times over to the cold. I know you've all been in the Crucible, played Gambit. This was worse. Much worse. Anyway, 4 of us were left. We were raving psychos at this point. Only the 4 of us in the howling wind and icy slopes for company. The occasional scurrying, vacuous creature to argue about. One day, when we had settled in for the night in another monolith, something swept over the planet. I later learned it swept across the system. All of y'all here in this felt it. You were there at its source. All 4 of us lost our light, and we knew it. We looked over at the monolith creature in its frozen cage. It seemed to stare right back. I think I mentioned we're all raving psychos at this point. Well, we did what all measured raving psychos would do. We thought we had each been betrayed by the others. We drew on each other. To this day, I'm not sure how many of those guys drew intending to kill. But I'll tell you this. I was the only one who walked out. The creature in that monolith watched it all. When it was over, I stuck a finger straight up at it. It was just me now. How'd I get from there to here? Maybe I'll get to tell that story someday. We'll see if my Gambit makes it that far. Dun dun dun. Okay, so what do we want to talk about at first on that one?
How Dead Space is in Destiny.
What? A monolith? That drives people insane? What?
I wasn't even talking about the monolith, to be honest.
Or what? Sorry, what was the ice planet? Tavalantis, yeah.
Yeah, Talvalantis being the freaking ice planet that it is, and how it just carries over. I was like, so what you're telling me is that Drifter is a corrupted Isaac Clarke. Okay, got you. Perfectly fine. But actually, Drifter would have been part of like the Earth initial force that went out that way.
I remember you like reacting when you react. You're like, really, really?
Yeah. Well, I actually had messaged, or I sent a tweet out to like Z and Jill too.
Yeah.
And I had asked them like, who did this? Like, who did this? And they were like, look, don't look at us. We weren't the ones to blame for this one. We had nothing to do with it. So they
had nothing to do with this.
And they were like, is there something wrong? I was like, no, this is brilliant. This is awesome. So if it was meant as a homage to Dead Space 3, which it reads that way, it very well could be. Even if it isn't, it's so close to it and pretty awesome that I am okay with it. But yeah, really, really well done little bits and pieces that they've done with it. I like it a lot. Just as a like overall. But like what it means for us though is kind of silly to think about. Just the amount of possibilities that exist with just like a monolith. Regardless in sci-fi is pretty open-ended because that can also mean a couple things like friggin' 2001 or otherwise could fit into that bill. It could be like the beginnings of civilization and how civilization got going. It could be many, many, many things. But I am okay with what it kind of proves or what it kind of talks about. But yeah, just good stuff overall. Like I'm still trying to digest a lot of this stuff because that's one reason. Like I've been as quiet as I have been, is because one, I'm really not done with this, and two, to digest a lot of the new lore we've been given has just been silly awesome.
Mm-hmm. That yeah. Oh yeah. Like I mean, like I said at the top of the show, it's like, or maybe it was before. I can't remember if it was before the show, but reading back over the Ghost Stories lore booklet, when I was talking about Shen, the connections there. There's like even even within the lore booklets themselves, there is a just plethora of connections even within themselves, like even within the entries within that self-contained story that's being told, there are a number of references that explain quite a bit. And then the instance that you realize that we have, like, I think, what is it, six or seven of them, and they all connect to each other. One of the ghost stories talks about the ghost hunter, Cyril. Well, another one, who the Micah 10 is, who is quote unquote the den mother of unpartnered ghost, which I love about his character, but he point blank calls out the fact that if he meets Cyril, he's putting him down. Like, and it makes sense, right? Because because Micah's job is kind of like his unspoken job is protector of unpartnered ghost. And so like he protects the ghosts from other things. And so like the ghost hunter is this thing. But then like Cyril, I want to say Cyril pops up in another book. Savin is another one. Savin you see Savin's resurrection in Ghost Stories, and then Savin also comes up in the Awoken of the Reef lore book. Savin is the awoken guardian that is brought to Mara and introduces the entire guardian population to the Awoken of the Reef, and how like their self-obsessed nature of gaining more power and like this just natural tendency to do that, it actually turned her off of the Guardians for a long while, because she was like, you're just you're just children. You don't understand what you're doing. Yes. There are a lot of ghosts in the Ghost Stories entries. There are 2 or 3 entries which might be the history of our ghost. Pulled pork is one of them. Pup is another one from the Micah entry, and then there's one other one that I can't remember the name of. We also get confirmation from them of like the Ghost Spectral Network, which is the Vanguard's basically the hidden network for Ghost, which is really cool. Like the explanation for that is really cool. To come back to the Drifter, though, we get, again, a continuation of this really engaging story between Shin and the Shadows in a roundabout way. And so it's just really cool there. The Warlock armor, presents, again, an element of this is a individual who was raised before in the Dark Ages. He had seen the travesty of the warlords. You actually got, sorry to go back to the Ghost Stories, you get an entry of a ghost who, you get a couple entries of ghosts who purposely did not resurrect their charges. They abandoned them. And one of them was a ghost who abandoned their charge because he was a warlord. And she, the ghost, disagreed with what he was doing, and he wouldn't listen to her. And so it was the story of her finally coming to the point of where, like, she was like, I'm done, furthering this cycle of not what we were meant to do. And that's kind of where, the Drifter, you kind of see his reaction here too. In the Warlock armor, because he says in the very first part, he says, they had seen that light can be the cause of so much strife. And this kind of is where I get the tickling thought of the Drifter being Pahanin, because he's a tech-savvy mechanic. He has a weird obsession with cephalopods. He's talking about the damage of light and how he has a personal history and understanding of the nature of Thorn as being able to steal light. There's a lot of little tidbits that make me really think that this is it's a possibility. It would explain his obsession with trying to figure out how to use Power of Darkness, because he doesn't have light necessarily, because it was stolen by Thorn. But that all being said, that you're sorry, go for it, Beard.
But he was reviving himself on the planet.
Right, and that's where I'm not gonna say it's without holes.
Yeah.
Um,
That's the one thing that kind of just bugs me, that it might be Pahanin.
right,
If
yeah,
not
yeah.
that,
No,
then, like,
there's a few
taking-
things. Yeah,
well,
there's a few
taking
things.
of the light does not mean that it was permanent.
Right.
Like, that's the
Though
only
it
other
might
thing
it
that
might
you could
be
really
maybe he was
stretch.
like wounded to the point where he couldn't. I don't know. There's a lot of ways that
Yeah.
it doesn't negate it, but it does require some further explanation if that is the direction they take him. Like
Yeah.
that piece of it, I 100% agree with it. There's a few others that I'm like, you're gonna need to there needs to be an explanation regardless of what happens on like what his history is.
Mhm.
But regardless, one of the things that actually drove him out of this system. I mean, we're talking he left the solar system because of what he saw as strife being caused by light. And
Yeah.
so again he calls it out. They left at the dawn of the city age. And then in another I think it's a quest step, but it's called out that he spent enough time to find a ship that was working and then left. Like he basically got out as quickly as he could. Yeah, and then the monolith bleed flavor text. That's a whole nother tangent rabbit hole. Sorry, chat was mentioning that. But yeah, and so again, they see the travesty of the warlords and the strife that I'm assuming they're looking at. The combat between the warlords, the Iron Wolves, the newly risen Guardians, all these people, all these forces that are basically demigods smashing into each other with the power of light. And I mean, to be fair, a group of them were kind of just like, we're done. We don't want to be part of this, which is entirely understandable to a degree. And they left. And that was kind of, and this kind of gets into the point where it also explains where his twisted views of what Guardians are kind of stems from. Is he left because he saw the travesty being performed in the name of the light, and then he got trapped on an ice planet for a year where he went insane. So there's kind of explanations here and there of that whole piece. Real quick, let me see. So chat's making a comment about the monolith bleed items. Monolith Bleed 2 was actually one that we saw a little bit of conversation earlier in the week. Because there's a connection with Monolith 2 and the Last Wish raid that I had brought up with a couple people. It's Monolith Bleed 2. It says, in a broken fortress at the heart of a poisoned land lies the Wishmaker, which is basically Riven. Monolith Bleed 4 is the Pahanin Errata, talking about shaking hands with warlocks. So, yeah. And be right back real quick. I got to take care of something. Sorry.
That's fine. Yeah, I'm sorry, chat. I wish I had more I could offer tonight.
All right. Sorry about that.
Oh, good.
Okay. So yeah, sorry. Did I miss anything before I jump back in?
Nope.
So yeah, I don't know, to kind of wrap that up, talking about the the Monolith Bleed 4, for the Pahanin. I don't know necessarily if that's a connection to the Monolith. I don't know. I don't know how that one necessarily if that one necessarily fits in with anything.
I mean, it's a multi-class armor, which is another thing to point out.
Mm-hmm.
It isn't a single armor set.
Was it not a Warlock set?
It is a Warlock set, but I believe that there are, unless I'm thinking wrong, and there are others that it is only a Warlock one, but I thought that there were.
Yeah, because I think
multiples of it.
Because the Monolith Bleed 3 talks about Thanatonauts.
Yeah.
I mean, there's like, it seems like these were kind of all over the place. Or not all over the place, but like they, I think the only one that really I saw direct connection was Monolith Bleed 2, and that was again to the Last Wish raid.
Yeah, I'm gonna say more to the Dreaming City in general.
Mm-hmm. Oh yes, and he does mention Ephrodite, which is hilarious because apparently Ephrodite ruined his bar.
Screwed up his bar.
Which
I'm all right with that.
Just love the fact A, that he had a bar, and B, that his involvement with Ephrodite was she screwed up my bar. Ruined my bar. Yeah, and then there's a few pieces there. So yeah, I mean, I think that's really kind of a good summary introduction to Drifter. I know that we're pushing about an hour. What is it, an hour 45 minutes of that? So I mean, I understand summary is a loose term, but there really is a lot of webbed out connections within the new lore with Forsaken, and this is just one of many pieces. So again, good. I think this was a good summary introduction for the content for tonight. Let me see, because I know we had gotten a dispatch, but where did it go? Give me 1 second. Let me pull it up. All right. So, real quick, we do have a dispatch for this week. So,
dispatches received from the wilds.
All right, this is actually a follow-up for the one that we got last week, talking about the dog and the costume. And so he's JAH is talking, for his costume, for the helmet, he's going to do the one-eyed mask, which he doesn't have in game. And so that leads to his question: do you guys have exotics, and if so, how? So Beard, do you have gotten any of the new exotics, and how?
The new exotics, no. I have none of the new stuff, aside from like anything that I could quest for. That's the only thing that I'm able to have at the moment. I have gotten a couple of things. I have another world and the prospector, but that was really it. I have not gotten much in the way of exotics right now. They've actually made part of the TWAB this week actually was about exotics and how they don't want to really change them that much in terms of how you receive them or whatnot.
Yeah, and I was gonna say, I think the only new, like, quote unquote new exotic that I got was the other day. I got the Skyburner's Oath, but that,
You never had it before?
Yeah, I hadn't had it before, but that's the only reason I call
Gotcha.
it a new one, is because I finally got it.
I was gonna say
that's not a Forsaken one.
no.
I've been so in love with legendaries, I'm not even running exotic weapons at this point.
Yeah, I feel like this kind of made a turn in terms of like how we can receive our gear, or how I play with weapons at this point, because a lot of the gear I like is still legendary, with exception, of course, towards like Ace of Spades and a couple others, of course, but that's to be expected.
Yeah, and like armor wise, I'll be honest, on armor wise, I still run with Orpheus. Like, Orpheus rigs I have yet to take those off, just simply because even with all the tweaks and nerfs and whatnot, I still just love the abilities that they grant, and it fits really nicely into my playstyle. I know the entries on the new exotic armor are, some of them are really heartbreaking. The one-eyed mask actually is really sad.
Yeah,
it's really sad. And then there was there was another one that was, I'm trying to remember what I just blanked on it, but there was a couple that were really heavy reads. One-eyed mask, if you guys had, or is it One-eyed Mask? Is that the one it's called?
Yeah.
If you guys haven't read that one just yet, it's a very good one. It's very, very sad though. And then I can't remember which one. I'll try to remember it.
Can you remember any bits of it? Because I did read them at least.
It was it's the bear. It's the one.
Oh, the Ursa.
Ursa, yes.
Yeah.
Ursa Furiosa.
Ursa Furiosa, yeah.
Is that one's not so much. I mean, it's basically bear arms. I mean, I'll be honest.
Say
it's
the
literally
thing that everybody's telling me I need to make a Titan for.
Oh, I mean, it's literally, if you look at the picture, they are literally Wolverine bear arms, is what I call them. But the entry is, oh my god, it's one of those entries where you see a guardian being like a guardian, like they are putting aside all things and guarding regular people at the cost of everything. And so this is another one of the I believe this is actually during the Red War, I want to say. I can't remember though, it might not be. Or
I think it was before.
It might have been before, and they just got separated. From her the Titan in question in this one, I think, is Bjorna 3. And it's talking about how she was protecting a group of citizens or survivors. But yeah, it's just a really powerful read. It's one of the longer ones too, and it's just really good. But yeah, that one and One-Eyed Mask both are just amazing. The ghost story entries, there's a ghost story entry that I believe is called it's not Hero's Requiem, it is Who Guards the Guardians is an excellent one. And then oh gosh, Struck by Wonder and Who Guards the Guardians from the ghost story entries are up there with my favorite ones so far from that particular series too. But yeah, there's a lot of entries in Forsaken that just really hit close to home as far as like emotion goes. I'm really, really happy with all of that, how it's been. Which I guess leads into final thoughts and shout outs, really. So Beard, do you have any there?
Just a big thanks to Actually, Icehawk and Pet Shop, who I'm currently sitting here playing some strikes with at the moment, since I am pretty well no good at this for the moment. But they've been helping me out a lot with catching up with the game and trying to keep going with some of the missions right now because I've been horribly underleveled. So extremely thankful that they've been able to help out with that stuff, and so I can see some of the content that's actually in this game, and to actually finally report on it, since time is not ever on my side.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, they did say that they wanted our complaint to be too much lore, too much lore. I call Uncle.
Yeah.
Which I won't ever
yeah.
call Uncle, but I mean, I will give them the satisfaction of saying, "Oh my God, guys."
Yeah, I'm gonna say it is. It's a lot of stuff. I'm definitely to the point, and I've been seeing it across multiple creators' channels at the moment, but they've all been saying that it's just overwhelming the amount of stuff to dig into, and that's from a PvP perspective.
Love it.
That's from a lore perspective. That is from an everything perspective. I mean, every week we have something new that we have to try to digest and try to put into our skulls at the moment. And this has definitely been a welcome shift from where it used to be. So it's seriously like a good call on Bungie. Like there is nothing that I am in any way like going to get mad about them for. It's been awesome, period. But yeah, it's been good to hunt again. It's been good to discover again. It's just been good overall to feel where the community is at, and then it's all pretty well good things. So
yeah, and
just in general, I'm happy to experience it though with these
oh
guys.
yeah,
So.
yeah, no, I completely agree. Chat's talking about that right now with the voice lines. To be fair, in response to chat, I kind of put this in there for those of you who might not know, I am trying to port over the videos from Twitch now over to YouTube, so you can get the unedited versions that way. In addition, if you want to see, I'll keep this bit in the show that we put on the podcast. But if you want to see quite a bit longer episodes and a little bit more of the rambling nature of the live streams, those are going to be over on YouTube starting this week. I've managed to start getting those over into an unedited playlist. But what I did want to say is, Viru in chat said that they feel like they keep seeing new voice lines every week. And I think that is going to slow down here. The reason being is that we know from the silver lining of one of the debacles that happened with the API at the beginning of Forsaken was that we got access to things that weren't intended to be released, except they were supposed to be time gated to certain events and certain times. Silver lining is that we kind of learned that calendar just by the nature of finding out what was supposed to be where, and that timeline-esque was about the 3-week cycle. So the 3 week of the raid, and then the taken influence of the city growing, and then it's going to get probably reset. I don't know how they're going to explain it necessarily in game. I know how they explained it in the lore. I don't know how they explained it in game. But I was saying, I think that after that 3-week cycle, the amount of brand new content might slow down a bit, just simply because we're going to be back. We're going to be in a cycle, so we'll get these new voice lines that everyone's, rapidly trying to document and everything. We're going to get them again. Like I think they're going to come back around. I think this is just my thought there, but I could see that being kind of the pattern that they're following here.
It also gives us, they're saying that we're not going to have content droughts. We're going to have a content drought that's going to come up, but it's not going to be something that's, what's the best way to put it? There is still so much more for us to digest that it's going to be something that we're not going to experience for a very long time as being a full-fledged content drought. Versus what we're used to seeing, where it does go months on end without anything. But I know that that's the goal of like some of the newer content that is coming up, as well as some of the expanded stuff and the season pass, etc.
Right.
Uh,
Yeah.
but I am definitely interested to see where that's going to take us, because there are definitely a lot of new avenues that they can play with. Is also a book that isn't opened yet to anybody, as far as I know. Uh, it
The
is the Truth to Power, I think it is.
Yeah,
Or Truth and Power.
there are a couple of entries that have become available. I don't think the full thing has been unindexed on Ishtar. I mean, obviously,
No.
if you go to Reddit, you'll have access to it because that was part of the mishap that happened. But
You can look it up on Ishtar just for clarity. If you know what they are called, you can just look up the entries,
yeah.
and they
So they're
can
just
be
not they're not
found.
indexed. Okay,
Yeah.
gotcha. Okay, so they're
There's
still
also, I did some addition the last night, I think. There's 166 entries that Ishtar has. There is 161 that are known, and that are showcased in the Triumphs books. So keep that in mind. There are a couple that if you go and dig through that are not shown as like super secret special ones. But that's the only big thing to otherwise watch out for. Yeah, I'm curious to see on this 3-week cycle how things go, because I know it's supposed to come to a head with the opening of Wishender, and that is going on this weekend.
there. Right.
Uh,
Yep.
and then it's supposed to flip back over, and then I think we'll be able to see like the starting of the other stuff again. Like I'll be able to see the Ascendant challenges that I wasn't able to see in weeks 1 and 2. And I'll be able to actually see, hopefully, some of the other missions that were also available that I was not able to play, which will be great.
Yeah, and so yeah, we're talking about that in chat a little bit as well for the Truth to Power piece, because the Truth to Power lore entries do actually kind of explain the cycle. When you fully get them unlocked, they kind of explain it. So, yeah, oh man, there's, like I said, there's a lot to unpack. I think we did justice for a summary review of the Drifter, at least here.
As being a summary, pure and simple.
Oh yeah,
I think
yeah.
like what we're not doing yet, of course, is doing spin foil or coming up with anything else. Just
I don't think we have I mean, to be fair to ourselves, I don't think we have a firm enough grasp on everything within it to really kind of start being like, all right, so this and this. I mean, like you and I both, we've had this conversation a couple times. You know, you and I both have our own like kind of beginnings of theories.
Yep.
But they're in the early stages, and you know, like the conversation with about Pahanin, you know, like it's admittedly this is like a beginning of a theory, but I also recognize 100% that there are plenty of holes in the like that I haven't had a chance to sit down and be like, okay, this is the answer to that problem, or this could be an answer to that problem. And I think everyone's kind of on that same book. I mean, we're still at this point, we're still uncovering new lines, and dialogue is so much more important now. Whereas in D1, you know, idle dialogue, it was important, but it wasn't like groundbreaking as far as like theory crafting goes. In Destiny 2, especially in Forsaken, there have been some tidbits that have been dropped as part of idle dialogue that are just like that. I mean, just blow things out of the water. I know Zavala has a number of them. And then, Shuro, the Pilgrimage, the Athleon. Oh my gosh. Dino, the Athleon. I would need to know more about, like, I need to know what the Athleon is. But yeah, history class with Shuro Chi is what the Pilgrimage missions are being called at this point. So, and those things have great amount of information there. I know Ishtar is working pretty tirelessly to transcribe those. But yeah, so that all being said, we really appreciate it. We've got a lot of good feedback this past week. So I really want to give a huge shout out to everyone. I've had really good conversations with people over on Reddit. Actually, I have gotten into a couple conversations over there. one of them actually gave us the idea of trying to do a summary episode of the story so far in Destiny. I am going to try to figure out how to best do that because, there's a lot of information there. I know Bife has done his YouTube videos. I think everyone at this point has kind of made the rounds, that particular topic, but I don't know. Oh, you haven't? All right.
I was told I need to, but
yeah, we're on the same page, Beard. We're on the same page on that one.
It's like time's against us or something.
Oh my God. Well, and it's also because
like
I don't think I could do justice. Like when you talk about summaries, I get so focused on certain aspects that I'm like, oh, but this is really interesting. But they're like, it's a summary you don't want to talk about. So that's my problem. I have to try to figure out where that all where we can fit that in.
I'm gonna say there's got to be a line we got to draw in this.
Yeah. So that's one of my side projects for this next couple weeks. I'm going to try to figure out how to do that. Excellent feedback. I believe that was from Reddit actually, and I just blanked on the guy. Oh, give me 1 second because I really want to give this guy a shout out. Suffit87 was the individual who gave that idea to me. So a really great idea. I'm going to try my best to do it justice. And then, like the feedback that we're getting on iTunes, appreciate a lot of the points that we're making. We've got a couple emails that we've had. And I just appreciate keep it coming, guys, because that's what helps us get better at what we're doing. And we're constantly trying to figure out a better way of doing what we already do. So that being said, we'll run through an outro, and then we'll see you on the opposite side. With that, we'll begin to wrap the chat up. Thank you again to those over on Twitch for coming to spend your evening with us. If you'd like to join us for the live streaming of the episodes, please be sure to give us a follow over on twitch.tv/FocusFireChat. Links to our episode archives can be found at www.focusfirechat.com. Please be sure to email us at focusfirechat@gmail.com with any comments or questions for our team concerning the podcast, and let us know how we're doing by giving us some feedback and a rating over on iTunes as well. Also, be sure to check out all of our amazing partner podcasts within the Guardian Radio Network over on theguardiansofdestiny.com. So until next time, focus your fire and may your light shine bright.
Are you trying to tell me to get in shape? Is that what you want to do right now?
Pew pew.
Yeah,
Choo,
I
choo.
didn't realize that was gonna actually send a link. I was like, oh, apparently that actually sends. Purple void space. See, I think the void space for Callus wasn't that.
Oh, good, Necro. Good to see you.
Hey, Necro. Explain the Harbingers a little.
Ooh, a little, huh? There's nothing entirely clear about them except for the fact that it seems like Mara and the Techeuns have some kind of control over them. They feel like they are void-based. They also seem to be able to be replicated or bred in some way. We're not exactly sure.
Yeah,
entirely.
basically, I don't think a lot of new stuff got brought in.
Unless
know-
it's talked about in the newer Awoken stuff.
That's
in
what
some
I'm
way,
pulling
but
them up right
no,
now in
I
Tyrannicide.
can't think of it.
Tyrannicide 4 and 5 are the entries that talked after the fall. Nope, after the fall doesn't have anything. Night Z. Are the Harbingers sentient? Yes. Where did I find that? That is, hang on. I have that written down actually. Can't remember where it was. Harbinger. Oh, come on. The Coven, that's the one. So this was actually back from the Taken King. We see that they refer to it says, so the beginning of the Coven says, the chamber was dark, the 7 of them were rarely in a room together anymore, but this was the eve of their greatest journey, a plan that overcame death and spanned universes. They were all connected in trance, communing as the ancients did. Speaking would tip their hand to the Harbinger mines they kept here, trophies from an ageless war and weapons in the right hands. So right there, that does give a degree of Harbingers having a sense of, I wouldn't say necessarily 100% conscious of self, but they do have, like, they are aware of their environments, and the same kind of, I kind of get the sense that Harbingers are like primeval, not primeval, but like primitive forms of something conscious, right? Like a dog, like an animal, it's going to be aware of stuff there. That being said, Harbingers are still really kind of unknown. We have in Tyrannicide that they position the Harbingers on the threshold, which is kind of connection back to the Coven, because that was where we see Shuro, Sedia, and Kali, all which were the Taken 3. They were the ones that were tasked with delivering their Harbingers, and so that's where they kind of like positioned them on the threshold. And then in Tyrannicide 5, the Harbingers are the Harbingers that were placed on the threshold gave Mara the gate into Oryx's throne world. This is where you kind of see the explanation of Mara and the bomb logic and how she, quote unquote, defeats Oryx in a way. And so, where does that go? Tyrannicide 5 says, in another way, a more true and symbolic way, she is impaled on Oryx's blade. She has thrown all her might at him, and he has answered. He has snuffed her fledgling divinity and her meager claim to royalty. He has exposed Mara to the raw and caustic hostility of his high war. She has been defeated by the sword logic. She dances down the blade and steps into his throne world. The Harbingers give her the gate, and she takes the step. She is dead, consumed by Oryx. She is dead in his will, his ascendant realm. There was no other way inside except this true way. And then it goes on to say, this is where she also kind of talks about the God damn it, what's the word that I'm thinking of? Anyway, the descent into the underworld. And she says, Inanna at least gave her people some warning. She told her minister, blah, blah, blah. Mara had not. Instead, she had enlisted Eris and several million mad dancing guardians to go knock off the god who killed her. It is, on that level, a very simple bank heist. Get yourself taken into the treasury as treasure, and when the owner dies, break back out with his stuff. But even Inanna had to send everyone away before she passed through the last door. And this is where she talks about like pushing away Aldrin and pushing away all the stuff. And then goes on. She said, and this Pat. So in response to your question about bomb logic, she says she has been thinking of a logic of her own, of secrets and hidden designs. The universe has not grown simpler in its age. Wherever life can begin, it has begun, and even in some places where sensible folk expect it should not. The great tendency has been towards intricacy, towards sophistication, toward deep thought and richer ways of being. A sword is everywhere edged, but the pieces of a bomb do not look at all like weapons until they are assembled. Oryx's throne world tries to tear her body and psyche into a quintillion screaming pieces, but Mara has survived the inchoate primordial chaos before space and time. She has retained her selfhood through far worse than this, and she has the patience for eons. Eris will succeed. The Guardians will play their part. When the power in this world is free for the taking, Mara will take it, not as the victor taking spoils, but as a scavenger takes a prize component for her masterwork. When a pawn reaches the far side of the chessboard, it may be promoted to a queen. And what hatches when you promote a queen? What new board does she claim her place on? Mara knows. She settles in for the long wait, entirely alone, almost at peace with it. Yeah, and Pat, so that was, hang on real quick. I had written a summary on that. All right, yeah, so here, this was, I think this was back on the episode with the Awoken update when we were talking about catabasis. That was the other word I was thinking about. When we were talking about the new info, I had written a summary that basically said, this is kind of summing up the events for the Awoken so far that we have. And I said, their hope. So I said the Awoken people would experience a massive blow to their way of life at the arrival of Oryx. Although the Guardian managed to defeat the Taken King, it was not without paying a heavy price. Among those lost were the Queen of the Reef, though some held desperately to the hope that she was still present in some way. Their hope, it seems, was not in vain, for this was merely a step in Mara's plan. A difficult one, to be sure, but one that was necessary if she was to overcome the threat that Oryx and his ilk were. For a while, Oryx and the Hive viewed the universe through the lens of the logic of the sword. For a while, Oryx and the Hive viewed the universe through the lens of the logic of the sword, Mara saw connections in the logic of the bomb. She merely needed a catalyst, a connection to bridge the pieces. And what better bridge than the blade of a god? So she was using the sword of Oryx to connect the pieces of her own weapon and to create the metaphysical bomb that would allow her to overthrow the whatever her nemesis is. Because ultimately it seems, and it kind of gets confirmed, with the recent stuff, especially here, it seems that Mara is playing a game against something far bigger than Oryx, or far more pressing in her mind. Her nemesis is not Oryx. Oryx is merely a step in the process of gathering power to take on something else, which begs the question, who or what is Mara actually fighting?
I'd hate to tell you, Necro, but you're asking the wrong guy right now. I have no idea. I have not had a chance to read that information. But I hope to get there soon if you've got ideas.
Savathun's murder battery. Yeah. So I don't know. I haven't read that recently. I glossed over that piece of it, Necro. I know the idea there. I'll have to revisit it, and I can get back to you on it. I know that from what I remember reading, it made some sense because of the time disparity, what was going on there. But again, that's just me remembering off the top of my head. And as far as any way to undo what was done by Riven, I would point you in the direction of Truth to Power. Really, honestly, Truth to Power is going to explain. It kind of explains exactly that. There is so Riven basically the trick that Riven played was that it was in, I think it's the new armor. Hang on. So the armor talks about, where was it? Oh, I don't have it written down, I think. Like basically Riven is, as all Ahamkara are, they are addicted to what's called the Anthem Anathema, which is let me see if I can find my notes on that. Oh yeah, Pat, I agree with that assessment 100%. I don't, but see, the problem that I have with that assessment is I don't know if it's Savathun on the other side. I can see it being her, but I don't know if it is. Oh my gosh, where did I put those notes? Boop, 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 boop. Here we go. The Anthem Anathema is basically that which the Ahamkara and the Worm Gods feed upon, and it's described as the perverse coercion of reality to match desire. So what they are doing is they're digesting the objective to conform to their prey's subjective will, and you see this in the semantics of their statements, right? It's always framed, oh, blank mine. They are entrapping the individual within that particular phrase, and then they use that trap to twist things. So imagine the jinn from the Middle East mythology on steroids. Like, it's just ridiculous. Which is where the concept of the Wall of Wishes from the Techians came from. Yeah, Varu, I agree completely on that one. So, like, the Techians came up with the idea, or I think Mara and the Techians actually came up with the idea of the Wall of Wishes, because the idea there is that it frames the wishes being put on there in a format that arguably is nearly impossible for an Ahamkara to twist. Now, that being said, Riven did find a way to kind of twist it to her desire in a way, in a very small way, but that was expected by Mara. So they kind of had everything kind of expected. We see, so far we know that there are 15 wishes, and then actually to connect those to the raid, that's where we get the ability in the raid to bypass certain things, and to create certain things. The only ones that I don't have notes on right now are the 10th, 13th, and the 15th wishes. These are the combinations on the Wall of Wishes. The first gives you like a key. The second one gives a chest. The third gives the emblem. The fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh all bypass various pieces of the raid to take you directly to it, the last of which takes you straight to Riven. The 8th is a throwback. It's a clip of Hope for the Future. 9th is the one that everyone lost their shit over recently, because that's the one that gives Failsafe the ability to comment on the raid through your body. The 11th, the 11th actually gives you the Grunt birthday party from Halo. So all precision kills gives the yay with confetti, which I absolutely love. The 12th will give you a flare for the players who are near you. And then the only last one that I know is the 14th, which spawns an egg above Kali in a hidden cave, which I think there's a triumph for destroying all the eggs, so that's going to be important for that. The 10th wish is, I'm assuming, going to be another one similar to the 9th wish, or the 9th and the 8th wish, because those are the ones that actually are a wish to stay here forever. 8th, 9th, 10th, and 11th are all the same. The 13th is a wish for the means to feed an addiction. And then the 15th is a really odd one. It's actually not really a wish. It's a quote from Riven that says, "This one you shall cherish." So we don't really know what that one is going to be. So yeah, but those are the wishes. So like the wishes on the wall, they would basically, the argument there is you carve the wish into the wall, and the Ahamkara who is granting the wish cannot twist the wish to win. Riven refers to Mara as one of the only ones who can win at the game that they play, that the Ahamkara play. The entries for the great the armor from the raid that deal with Riven is the in order that I have them right now. It's helm, the Titan helm, the Titan gauntlets, the Warlock hood, the Warlock robes, the Warlock gloves, Warlock boots, and Warlock bond are Riven's kind of entries. And that's the order that I'm kind of thinking that they're in. Eris is referred. Eris is the other big one from the Great Hunt items, and that is the Hunter set, and it starts with vest. It goes vest, grips, mask, strides, cloak, and that's the story of how Eris gets knowledge of her previous life. And then also a revelation of what Eris was doing during the Great Hunt, which is awesome. And then the Great Hunt actually is explained in the weapons. So we get callbacks to a lot of names that are really familiar if you were back in D1. You have Nadia and Shinobu, Ephrodite and Saladin, Praedyth, Kabir and Pahanin, Lufang and Oros, Tallulah and Caliban, Tycho 3 and Galida, Jolin and Petra, and then Mara and the Utex, and then the 1,000 Voices, which is the linear fusion rifle, is the one that has a really interesting. It's different than all the other ones, but it talks about the virus of language and how it infects through mental acuity. Basically, it's really interesting one on that one. But yeah, there's like I said, there's a lot to unpack in that. Just within the content of the armor, not even getting into the content of the raid itself from a lore perspective, because there's a lot in the raid that confirms and furthers the story also. But yeah, to speak in language of pure meaning. Yep. Yes, Veru, I 100% agree with that. The Wall of Wishes is an excellent way for Bungie to break the fourth wall and put in Easter eggs without breaking anything in game. Because like the whole trigger the order. Yeah, I can trigger. I can send it to you in Discord if you want. The whole thing with failsafe, everyone kind of lost their minds over it. But the thing is if you look at the combination on the wall as a wish, it makes perfect sense. Like it doesn't break anything because you're wishing, you're wishing for failsafe to be given a body. And the ninth wish is for something, or ninth wish is to stay here. But yeah. Yes. I mean, there's a lot to unpack to be said. But the Truth to Power series, yes, Veru. And she actually mentions that too at the beginning of the thing. She I think she calls out the fact that you used a wish to help her. I want to know more about CC Lagrange. Because Lagrange, like the definition of Lagrange, is called out in the Maracena. They use that term. And then there's the Lagrange excerpts from the is it the Lawless Frontier? Lawless Frontier and the Man the Cavalcade, I think, are the two with him. Yeah, Veru, I mean, the thing about the 9 is at this point we are getting a couple, like, I don't know if they're teasing or if they're giving hints, but there is actually a number of possible new explanations for the 9 within the Maracena. Because the thing is like in the creation of their species, the Awoken actually introduced a lot of things with it that allow in the game universe that explain a lot, but also open the possibilities for even more. So I'm just curious there. Oh, you guys, I think someone was asking about new exotics. I know the armor. What is it? The armor, we have Gwysyn Vest, Oathkeeper, Shards of Galanor, which, Beard, I'm waiting for you to read because I want to hear your thoughts on that one. The Sixth Coyote, Titans, we have Antius Wards, which is an awesome read. Heart of Inmost Light, The One-Eyed Mask, and Ursa Furiosa, which we talked about. Warlocks has Chromatic Fire, Controverse Hold, Geomag Stabilizers, and Phoenix Protocol. Weapons, I don't have those written down just right now. Yeah, I don't have those written down just yet. Yeah, yeah, we are. So, yeah. But yeah, that's pretty much what we got. Or what I've written down so far. But I am going to probably take off who trigger me. Destiny. It's down before I God. Ah, don't do that. Gloves, boots, and bond. Vest, grips, mask. All right, have a good one, Necro. All right, sure. I posted that order over in Discord for you guys. But that being said, I am going to take off. Yeah, and Pat, feel free to message us over in Discord if you want any, any ideas of where to look for some comfort or clarification on stuff, because I've been going through and kind of summarizing a lot of stuff as far as I can go. I know Beard does the same thing. Oh, Beard, talking about summarization, if you read in the ghost stories, it is the we before us, and yeah, the we before us, as well as the really funny one is the we before us compliments, and then God, what was the other one? The difference of opinion. That's the fun one with Balthazar and Peach. But the we before us and compliments. Compliments is Segura and Ophiuchus discussing the bond between Guardian and Ghost, and the we before us is a ghost recounting the memory of being created. So that's it's a really interesting one on that, because I know you and I have had that conversation. And yeah.
Sounds good.
Okay. All right, guys. See you all later. Have a great night. We will talk to you guys later.
See ya.